The wind cut across the open land like a blade, carrying dust, grief, and memories she had no choice but to face. Eliza's hands were blistered, bleeding in places where the wood had bitten into her skin, yet she didn't stop. Broken boards lay scattered around her like the remains of a life that once stood whole. Each plank she lifted felt heavier than it should have, not because of its weight, but because of what it represented. This shelter was not just protection from the coming storm, it was her last stand against being erased. The old farmhouse had collapsed months ago, its roof finally giving in after years of neglect and sorrow. Since then, Eliza had slept under the open sky, waking to cold mornings and colder loneliness. Today, the clouds had turned black, twisting into shapes that warned of something violent approaching. She knew she had only hours, maybe less. Her husband Samuel had promised to rebuild this land. He had stood right where she now stood, pointing at the horizon with hope in his eyes. Then the fever came, fast and merciless, and took him before the winter even ended. No doctor, no cure, just silence where his voice used to be. The land remembered him, though. Every fence post, every furrow in the field whispered his name. And then there was Thomas, Samuel's brother. He had ridden in 2 days after the funeral, dressed in black, eyes darker than the storm clouds now rolling in. He didn't say much back then. He never did. He stayed longer than expected, fixing a fence here, sharpening tools there, always watching, always quiet. And now, once again, he had come. Eliza sensed him before she saw him. There was a stillness that followed Thomas, as if the world itself paused to make room for his presence. She straightened, brushing dirt from her dress, her heart pounding not from fear, but from something far more complicated. When she looked up, he was standing a short distance away, his hat pulled low, his horse grazing behind him. He didn't greet her. He didn't offer help. He simply watched as she lifted another board, struggled to align it against the frame she'd built from scraps. Rain began to fall, light at first like a warning tap on the shoulder. "You shouldn't be doing this alone," Thomas finally said, his voice rough, worn by years of things left unsaid. Eliza didn't turn to face him. "I've been alone for months," she replied. "This isn't new." Thunder rolled overhead, deep and threatening. Thomas stepped closer, his boots sinking into the mud. He reached for the board she was trying to lift, steadying it without asking. Their hands brushed for just a second, and the contact sent a shock through both of them. Eliza pulled back quickly, anger flaring in her chest. "I don't need your help," she said, though her arms trembled with exhaustion. Thomas met her gaze then, and for the first time, she saw the pain he carried so carefully hidden. "I know," he said quietly, "but that doesn't mean I won't give it." The wind howled louder now, ripping through the tall grass. Together, without another word, they worked. Hammer strikes echoed like gunshots against the rising storm. Each nail driven into wood felt like defiance against fate, against loss, against the idea that she should simply give up and leave. Thomas worked efficiently, his movements practiced, his presence steady. Yet every so often, Eliza caught him glancing at her, as if afraid she might vanish if he looked away for too long. As the sky darkened, memories rose uninvited. Eliza remembered the night Samuel told her Thomas had always lived in his shadow. "He's stronger than he knows," Samuel had said, smiling. He just never believed it. Now Thomas stood in that same place, rain soaking his coat, his jaw clenched against emotions he had buried for years. The storm broke fully then, rain pouring, wind screaming, lightning tearing the sky apart. They scrambled inside the half-built shelter, just as the first violent gust tore through the open field. The space was small, barely enough to stand. Water leaked through gaps in the roof, dripping onto the dirt floor. Eliza hugged herself, shivering not just from the cold, but from the weight of everything she'd lost. Thomas removed his coat and draped it over her shoulders without a word. She started to protest, but the warmth silenced her. For a moment, the world outside disappeared. It was just the sound of rain, their breathing, and the unspoken truth hanging between them. "I should have come sooner," Thomas said at last. "After Samuel died, I told myself you didn't need me, that you were strong enough." Eliza laughed bitterly. "Strong doesn't mean unbreakable." Lightning flashed, illuminating his face. "I loved him too," he said, "and losing him felt like losing you even before this." Her eyes filled with tears she'd refused to shed until now. "Then why are you standing there, watching me fall apart instead of saying—" Morning came quietly, as if the storm had exhausted itself of all cruelty. The sky was pale, washed clean, and the land smelled of wet earth and possibility. Eliza woke on the hard ground, Thomas's coat still around her shoulders. For a moment she forgot where she was, forgot the loss, the storm, the shelter built from broken boards. Then she remembered everything at once. She sat up quickly, her heart racing, and found Thomas already awake, sitting near the entrance, watching the horizon as if guarding it. "You didn't leave," she said, surprised. He turned, a faint smile touching his lips. "I said I wouldn't." Outside, the damage was clear. Fences flattened. Trees bent at unnatural angles. Yet the shelter still stood. Crooked, imperfect, but standing. Eliza stepped outside, feeling the mud squish beneath her feet. She looked back at the structure she had built with her own hands and Thomas's help, and something loosened in her chest. This place, broken as it was, had survived. Maybe she could too. They spent the morning repairing what the storm had damaged. The work felt different now. Less desperate. More deliberate. Each board added, each knot tied. Felt like a quiet agreement between them. Not spoken, but understood. Still, tension lingered. The kind that comes when two people are standing at the edge of something, dangerous and undeniable. As the sun climbed higher, Thomas finally broke the silence. "I won't stay forever," he said. "I know this land is yours, I just wanted to make sure you were safe." Eliza stopped hammering. "And then what?" she asked. He hesitated. "Then I leave. Unless you ask me not to." The words hung between them, heavy with consequence. Eliza thought of Samuel, his laughter, his dreams, the promises they never got to finish. Loving Thomas would never erase that. It would complicate everything. Yet denying what she felt wouldn't honor Samuel either. He had believed in truth and facing life head-on, no matter how painful. "I don't need a savior," she said slowly. "But I don't want to be alone anymore." Thomas nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. "Neither do I." Days turned into weeks. The shelter became a house. The fields were replanted. Neighbors, long distant, began to return, drawn by the sight of smoke rising again from land they thought abandoned. Eliza found herself laughing, really laughing, for the first time since Samuel's death. Thomas never tried to replace his brother. He never rushed her grief. He stood beside her, steady and patient, allowing something new to grow in the space where pain once ruled everything. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky gold, Eliza stood on the porch of the shelter that was no longer broken. Thomas joined her, handing her a cup of warm coffee. Their fingers brushed, and this time neither pulled away. "We built this from nothing," she said softly. Thomas looked at her. "From broken pieces." She smiled. "Maybe that's how the strongest things are made." He reached for her hand, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. She didn't. As the land stretched out before them, scarred but alive, Eliza understood something she'd been too afraid to believe before. Survival wasn't just about enduring storms. It was about letting someone stand with you after they pass.